on Shavuot there was a carbon shtei alechem, two breads, and therefore we want to remember that carbon, just like on Pesach we want to remember the carbon Pesach and the carbon Chagiga, and therefore we have these two different foods on the Seder plate. So on Shavuot we want to remember the shtei alechem. So we have two different types of foods. One is milk, one is meat, and the halacha is in Hilchos Basa B'Chalav that I think it's in Siman Tzadik Zayin in Yeridea, that the halacha is that you're not allowed to use the same bread that was on the table with your fleshik meal, to use that same bread with your meat meal, because you're worried that the bread, unless it was maybe it got touched by fleshik, so maybe you had meat on your hands and you pulled off a piece, and so on, and therefore it could be it was on the table and there was something spilled, and therefore you have to have a different loaf of bread for your milchik meal than you had for your fleshik meal. Now, of course, there's halachas about that, if it was inside of a bag or if it wasn't cut yet and it was on a tray. That's the practical halachas of that are not for today's discussion. But the idea is that the significance of having milk and having meat is mechayev you, requires you to have two different breads, and that will remind you of the shtei alechem. Okay, and that's what the Ramah's reason is.
According to that, would you have to have two lechem mishnah twice? Once with the milchik and once with the fleshik?
I don't know if you had to have lechem mishnah twice, but you should, if you're going to use, it would make sense to have. Well, you're saying to make it like two whole different meals.
Like the first meal, you're having milchiks, you've got two challahs. So you'd have to take those off the table when you bring on the fleshik.
Or some people don't actually cut both loaves of bread. So you cut one, put away the other one for your milchik meal, for your fleshik meal, and then take that one out for the fleshik meal, because you don't really have to have a separate Yom Tov Suda. It's just a minhag to have milk and then meat. Right.
Is the minhag to bench after the milchik meal or not?
Okay, so this is interesting. Mr. Brura speaks about this. The Mr. Brura permits you that you don't have to bench, as far as I remember, that you don't have to bench in between. And there are others who are careful, based on the Zohar, not to have milk and meat in the same meal. So, So, but the Mr. The idea, according to this minhag, the idea would be also to have meat. There are some people who are noig just to have a milchik meal. I know when I grew up, that's what my family did, was just to have a milchik meal on Shavuot, and that was the enjoyment.
You have to have separate tablecloths.
According to this reason, it would have to be both, because that's to remind us of both. Yeah, go ahead.
You need separate tablecloths.
So yes, if you're going to eat milchiks, you need to have a separate tablecloth for the meat, unless one you didn't have a tablecloth, the other one you did have a tablecloth, or you had different placemats. But
bench off the both meals.
Right. So Mr. Brura doesn't require you to bench.
You don't have to.
Right. But you do need to make some kind of separation when a person eats milk in general and then eats meat afterwards. So they have to clean out their mouth somehow. So it's called kinuach v'adacha, to eat the food and to drink some kind of drink, that will clear out your mouth, and you want to be careful that you don't have these things stuck in your teeth. Yeah.
Does it also depend what you eat for milk? If you had a hard cheese?
Yeah, we're not talking about a hard cheese here. That would be more problematic. And you would have to, and the minhag would be to wait, and then you wouldn't have this. It wouldn't help just to wash out your mouth, right?
Well, when we say hard cheese, are we talking about the cheddar cheeses of today, or?
That's a good question. There's a question in the Playtime about the hard cheeses of today. How long it has to be aged for? Just the old cheeses in the olden days where they had worms in them. And okay, I didn't plan on speaking about the halachic aspect. So anything I answer here is al regal achas, on one foot, without preparation. But it is a question. There's different places in Eretz Yisrael. They're a little bit more stricter about this than in America, about what's considered the cheeses that you have to wait after them 6 hours. but something. The general idea is that something that's aged, but now the idea is that maybe it could be artificially aged in the different processes that they prepare cheese nowadays. Okay. The idea of the hard cheese is that the flavor is a much stronger flavor, long lasting. Okay. There's another reason for eating milchiks brought in the Mishnah Berurah. He doesn't quote the source. He just says that it's v'shem gadol echad, that he said tam nachan lezeh. And the reason is that by Har Sinai, when Klal Yisrael received the Torah, they came down from the mountain and they didn't have what to eat that was kosher. Now, even though they didn't learn, there's a question. They only got the Aseres HaDibros by Har Sinai. They didn't get all the laws of the Torah. So it says here in brackets to explain that based on Rav Sadia Gaon, that Rav Sadia Gaon explains that all of the Torah is really merumas. It's all hinted to in the Aseres HaDibros. So somehow, even though they weren't taught on the directly the halachas of kashrus, but they somehow knew, at least on some level, they were aware of these halachas based on the Aseres HaDibros, and the problem was that they need a lot of preparation. Maybe I'll say you need to learn halachas, specifics of it, but also they need. They can't just eat the meat that they already had at home. They need to shecht it with a sakin, with a knife that's already baduk, and they need to be menaker chuti achelev. They need to know how to remove the unkosher fats, and they need to salt it to get rid of the blood and wash it off, and
the salt takes time, and they got to eat right now. In the meantime,
that's right. They first rinse it off, then they salt it, then they soak it, and they had to cook in new kalim. This is the main thing. They need to have new kalim, because the kalim had bliyos, had flavors absorbed in it that were from before, and the flavors last 24 hours, that remain fresh. So and then even after those 24 hours, if the Rabbanan, I don't know if they already were holding by this, but the Rabbanan were goes there that you can't use a not kosher kli even after 24 hours, because of a gezerah, maybe you'll come to use it within 24 hours. So we have to kasher the kelim, and that also was a process. So what are they going to eat?
What was the kelim made of?
Yeah. Pottery, steel.
If it was made out of pottery, then that they couldn't even use it. They couldn't even kasher.
So what were they made of?
If it's made out of metal, then they could.
They had metal pots.
Did we know what they were made of?
Apparently they did in that generation, because when it comes to the battle against Midian, right, they got pots from Midian. That's where we learn about the halachas of kasher and kelim and tefillas kelim. Yes, so apparently they did have clay zav and different types of kelim, metal kelim in that generation.
But the Rabbanim couldn't even have counseled the Jews anyways, because
they also didn't learn halacha.
No, they didn't have a chance yet. Moshe Rabbeinu had only just come down, so he didn't have a chance to teach it to them. Is that true? I'm making that assumption.
No, yeah, it would seem like that. It's a question how they knew all this in the first place, but he's saying, based on Rav Sadia Gaon, that they had some level of knowledge. The question is, they probably didn't have the details of it. So, but for sure, according to this idea, they weren't ready on a moment's notice to start eating meat, and therefore they ate machalei chalav, and we make a remembrance for that they started keeping right away the halachas of kashrus. Okay, that's the second.
So why should this favor eating melachik?
Yes.
Because they got a problem. They got. You're assuming that the.
But they couldn't even cook anything. They had to eat raw food.
Oh, so you're saying the milchiks they ate was raw?
Raw, yeah, they ate raw food.
They didn't cook a lasagna or something like that.
Right. Unless they probably used like disposable pans to cook the lasagna.
That they picked up from the Soviets.
Yeah.
What were they cooking there where you had the mud? What was the food to be cooking?
Okay, they actually cooked the mun. They usually cook the mun.
So milk inflation?
Man sounds parv to me, but they did have cows and livestock and these things. I guess they could have milk also. I don't know why they needed to have milk together with their man, but well, that's a good question. The kavana was for milchik food.
That's a good question.
That's a good question. They were eating man, so was there anything else they were eating besides the man? Did they add any other ingredients to it? No.
Should we edit the camera right now? That's a big.
No, it's a good question, but the good thing about quoting sources is that you don't have to take full responsibility for it.
Yeah.
You could just quote it, and you know it's from great people, and there's an idea to it. And whether we have the answer to the question or don't have the answer to the question, it's good to discuss it, and it's something that you could discuss. We have a few more days till Shavuot to come up with the answer.
Okay. And we'll let you know what happened.
Okay. Now I'm not going to go through all the reasons here. He has many reasons here. How many reasons? 12 reasons. Okay. But another reason from the Beis HaLevi is that the Gemara says in Psachim, Samaches Samad Beis, it's 68b, that everyone agrees that on Shavuot, that you need lachem, which means that the Torah says by Yom Tif, that there's a halacha of one pasuk says la Hashem, that is a day to God, and another pasuk says that it's for you to rejoice. So there's a machlokes in the Gemara if it means chatzi lachem and chatzi Hashem, that means part of the day you spend in spiritual pursuits of davening, learning, going to the drasha of the Rav, and so on, and part of the day you go and you rejoice. And of course it's a rejoicing of the celebration of the Yom Tiv, right, but you're rejoicing in a physical way of having a Yom Tiv Suda, and so on, and going for an enjoyable walk and having Simchas Yom Tiv, and that would be the Chatzi Lachem. So that's one opinion, but there's another opinion. That's Rabbi Yeshua's opinion. The second opinion is Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says that you could choose. You could fast the whole day and make the whole day LaHashem, the whole day a day that's holy, sanctified to Hashem, or you could have the whole day of just rejoicing and the celebration of the mitzvahs of that we got the Torah and that we went out of Mitzrayim on Pesach and on Shavuot. Hashem took care of us in the Midbar. In the Sukkot, Hashem took care of us in the Midbar. He put us in Sukkot. And we don't have to have the Chatzi LaHashem. We could have just rejoicing about the celebration of that we have this time that Hashem gave us. But everyone agrees on Shavuot that we need both, that we need to have also Lachem. We can't just have the Chatzi LaHashem. We cannot fast on Shavuot. So the question is why? So the Gemara says...
Lachem is for yourself.
Lachem is for yourself. And for yourself is the part that you have to eat the Yom Tov meal. You can't just fast. So why is that? So the Gemara says that my taima, what's the reason why you also need to have this physical celebration? And the answer is, the Gemara gives, Yom Shenina by Torah. It's the day that the Torah was given. So Rashi explains, as far as I remember, that it's good to see the Lashon and Rashi inside because it's beautiful Lashon, but I think Rashi says that we want to show that even our guf, even our bodies are happy with Kabbalah Torah. So it's not just good for our neshama to get the Torah, but it's also good for our guf, because that's the way to elevate our body is through Kabbalah Torah, and our bodies are also celebrating that it's a day that's noyach, a makubal, that is something that's something that we are rejoicing in, even physical rejoicing, that our whole self, both our soul and our bodies, are all happy about receiving the Torah.
So is that a teretz for why we would have a Suda?
Yeah, so this is why...
Okay, but that's not a teretz for why it should be milchig, though.
No, this isn't explaining yet why it's milchiks.
Okay.
This is just why it would be Chatzi L'Hashem and Chatzi L'Chem. Why do you also need the L'Chem aspect, even according to Rabbi Eliezer? Because we want to show that this day, which we got a spiritual gift from Hashem of the Torah, is not just good for our neshama, but it's also good for our guf, because that's the guf's ticket to being perfected, to Olam Haba, to be Mekayim the mitzvahs with our guf, that we elevate our guf. And guf means our body. So the Beis Halevi says a different shot. He says, I think, that what is the reason why you need also part of Lachem? Because we got the Torah. So he says that Hashem offered the Torah to the Malachim, to the angels, and the angels. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. Not that Hashem offered the Torah to the angels, but when the angels saw that Hashem was coming to give the Torah to give it as a gift to His creations, so they said, "We're your creations, and we are much holier than mankind." So it's not your glory to give the Torah to mankind who is so imperfect and has a Yetzer Hara and the imperfections of the body and the physical limitations, and they're involved in the mundane. Give us the Torah. Give your hod, your glory into the heavens, into the heavenly creations, the malachim. What is man that you shall remember him, that you shall give it to him, to mankind? So Moshe Rabbeinu was part of this debate, so to speak. Hashem asked Moshe Rabbeinu, what do you say? The malachim say, I should give it to the angels. And Moshe Rabbeinu said that the malachim, there's what is written in the Torah. It's written in the Torah not to steal, because the malachim steal. It's written in the Torah, all of these physical mitzvahs. This is not something that they could fulfill. It's not shayach, applicable to the malachim. So, so therefore, Hashem said, you're right, we'll give the Torah to mankind. Okay. Now, question, what was the Havamina? What was the discussion? Was there really a thought to give it to the Malachim? But I believe that the idea is that the Torah was given to Klal Yisrael and to Moshe Rabbeinu only because we appreciated it, because we wanted it and we were seeking it, and this idea had to be brought out, that the Torah was given to the mankind because we were the ones who needed it. We were the ones who appreciated it, and it was relevant to us. And we had to realize that. So it wasn't something that Hashem had to know, but it was something that even Moshe Rabbeinu and Klal Yisrael had to know, that this is for us. So how does this answer why we would have milchiks on Shavuot? So the answer is that the reason first why we have we have to have lachem, the Chatzi Lachem, we have to have the Yom Tov Suda, because that was the way that we got the Torah, because we were able to be Mekayim mitzvahs with our guf, with eating and celebrating in a physical way that Hashem gave us the Torah, and being Mekayim mitzvahs that are physical mitzvahs. So therefore, that brings us to eating milchiks, because the idea, according to the Beis Halevi, it's similar to the Ramah. We have to have meat because the mitzvah of Simchas Yom Tov is with meat.
Right.
So we're going to have meat. But on Shavuos we also eat milchiks because we want to show how we fulfill all the mitzvahs that are required separating between eating meat and milk. We have to wash out our mouth and eat something, and that should wipe out our mouth with the solid food, and rinse our mouth with the drink, and all of this is to show that we separate between eating milk and meat, which is one of the mitzvahs that Hashem gave us, that we are careful about in the physical way that we eat. And
can I get a clarification on this?
Yes.
So first, I thought you were saying, and maybe you did, that because to celebrate a Yom Tov, you have to have a Suda. Okay? And so, because the Kabbalah's Torah is for lachem, so Hashem wanted that we should have a different way of acknowledging that fact, and that's why we would have dairy. And why would we have dairy? Because why?
Okay, so we have dairy because we want not just to be eating, and you don't see that we're fulfilling halachos, commandments, and different dinim within our eating. Here we're making it very visible that while we're eating here, we have laws of how we have to do it. So we make things more complicated.
Right.
And the complication is by first eating milk,
right.
and then you can't just eat meat right afterwards.
Right.
So we have these requirements that we have to fulfill of making the separation and cleaning out our mouths, and that's all to show our carefulness and our zrizos of how we are going to fulfill the mitzvahs with the physical performance of what we're doing, and that's all to bring out that the Jewish people are fulfilling mitzvahs with our guf, and the eating is a mitzvah.
Couldn't we do that with fish? One could argue you might be able to do that with fish. Not perhaps with the same degree of stringencies, but...
Right, it's not the same degree, because fish, you're not going to eat it at the same time as the meat, but... first of all,
but that's only the Rabbanan.
Yes, the Rabbanan has to do with sakana. It has to do. Let me go back for a second. The Rabbanan aspect might not be a good answer, because why? Because it's true that the separating between meat and milk is daraisa, but the Torah level of separating between meat and milk actually does not even require us that we can't eat meat and milk in the same meal. Why? Because the Torah says not to cook meat and milk together, and the Torah only forbade, says 3 times, and one time is to tell us not to cook meat and milk together, another time is to tell us not to eat the meat and milk that were cooked together, and the third one is to tell us not to even benefit from the meat and milk that were cooked together. But all of this is only when it was cooked together.
Consumption.
And it was cooked together.
Right.
So the flavors were infused one into the other.
Right.
But if you would be eating a cheeseburger, it could be that would be a Isser Daraisa, because that could be cooked together. But if you would be eating in the same meal your meat, and also on the same plate you have your cheesecake, and you're eating them, or your lasagna, separately, and they weren't cooked together, and you're eating them separate.
Lasagna.
Your cheese lasagna, that wouldn't be a Torah prohibition; it would be a rabbinical prohibition, and so certainly you wouldn't have to wash out your mouth in between from one to the other. But nevertheless, it is definitely based on a Torah law that we're making levels of staying far away from having the meat and the milk together, and keeping us distance from cooking the meat and milk together and eating it.
So really there's no time limit between having a milky meal and then going into a meat meal. Really there's no time limit for this.
Unless you're using hard cheese.
Right. If you don't wash your mouth, out, and we're talking about without hard cheeses. But if you didn't wash out your mouth, and in the proper way, so then if a certain amount of time elapsed, you could just go ahead and eat meat without having to worry that maybe there's still some flavor in your flavor in your mouth. But like I said, there is a question. Some are strict based on the Zohar not to eat it in the same hour or the same meal. But the Mishnah Berurah, I believe, says that you don't have to bench. We could look it up right now while we're on camera. Okay, this is in Siman Tzav Tzadik Dal. The halachos of Basar B'Cholav are not in Orach Chaim. So most of the halachos you won't find in Orach Chaim in the laws where the Mishnah Berurah speaks about. But when it comes up to eating it on Shavuot, so there's different halachos. Tzav Tzadik Dalid, Siv Gimel. So the Poskim caution us to keep the proper halachas. Okay. Bring some of the different minhagim of having greens and different things that to remind us of Matan Torah. And then he says, Some places have a minhag to eat machal chalav on the first day of Shavuot, and the Ramah gives the reason. Okay, of the shtei alechem, it's reminding us of the 2 loaves of bread. Okay, part of what I didn't add in is that the shulchan that we eat on is compared to mizbeach. Okay, because of the mitzvahs that we do on the shulchan of hachnasat archim and saying divrei Torah and feeding aniyim and benching, many mitzvahs that we do that we elevate our table. It's like a mizbeach. So when we bring 2 loaves of bread onto this shulchan on our meal, it's like bringing 2 loaves of bread to the mizbeach that we had on Shavuot. So, okay. Okay. So he says like this. Says in Mishnah Berurah Sukkah Zayin, "V'yizar likach mapa acheres." You should take a new tablecloth. Kisharayt zelachal basar. V'ein tzarich lahavsik bebirchas hamazon. You don't have to bench in between. Imeina ochal gvina kasha. If you didn't eat hard cheese. Okay, it says in the bottom of the Sharatzion, because if you did eat hard cheese, then you would have to, number 1, bench, and number 2, also wait 6 hours in between. And you don't have to bench. That was the part that I was looking for here. And then the third point that he makes is that Eliyakanech piv yafe should rinse out your mouth well. V'yadiach k'de'isa yardes and peites, and that it involves eating, like I said, the kinuach is the solid food and also a liquid, a drink. It doesn't matter which order it's in. It could be one. It could be either order. Eating a solid food like something bread, and that is the idea is it's called wiping. Wipe out your mouth, and hadacha is rinsing, and that by drinking you're rinsing out your mouth.
That's a question.
Yeah.
Does the Mishnah Berurah, I think I just heard you say some have the minhag of eating meat, dairy before meat. Did you just say that? Did you just read that?
He said.
And then I'll get to my question.
Shulchan Aruch says that in some places they have the minhag to eat milchiks on Shavuot, and then he goes into the reason. But it says they're not even everywhere. My
question ultimately is it that some eat dairy before meat, or we should eat dairy before meat? In other words, like, what should, Lachla Maisa, what should we be doing? If you want to
fulfill this minhag that's brought in Shulchan Aruch, which it's a widespread minhag, so then you would want to have milchiks on Shavuos. It's not an obligation, but depending on what the reasons are, it would depend whether you should have milchiks first and then meat, or just milchiks. If, let's say, you go like the reason that the Mishnah Berurah brought from Gadol Echad, so that the idea was that the Jewish people, by their meal after Matan Torah, they only had milk,
right?
Because that's all they could eat
because
at that time.
What you were talking
so
about.
then, according to that reason, you wouldn't necessarily have to have this milk followed by meat. The question goes into a different question, whether you're obligated to have meat to fulfill the mitzvah of Simchas Yom Tov. Could you fulfill that with without dairy, or perhaps without drinking wine? Because some of these wines say specially on it that it goes good with like with the hard cheese or with the with the fish, and depends whether it's a white wine or a red wine and what type of fish and
So this is connected to that same idea. I happen to know a family that I'm very close to, my family, that often what we'll do is, we'll have lunch would be dairy, but the Suda would often be flesh. Now that order...
What do you mean at night?
And, with the Mincha Marg, we come home, we'll have Suda's mitzvahs, it'll be at night with fleshik meal.
Okay.
And then at 2 in the afternoon, when everyone wakes up, we're stirring around, we're having our lunch, we'll have like a dairy meal. So the order isn't there, right? Because at first, in Matan Torah, you got dairy first.
Right.
So, if it's a symbolic thing, the question is how far do you take it? If you're going to do it, I guess you should be doing it first, at the very least, dairy followed by meat. And then if you want to have dairy later, that goes into Is that where we're holding?
You don't have to worry about it, okay? You don't have to worry about it. But for those who do it in this way, this will be the significance. Some people have just the kiddush in the morning. They will stay up the whole night, so they come home, they make a kiddush. It's a milcha kiddush, and then they have the meal, the fleshik meal. That would be, or even if you don't stay up the whole night, you could do it. You could have a milcha kiddush, and then, you know.
Would you wash between the two sudas? Would you wash
You
again?
didn't have to.
If you didn't bench in between, you don't have to wash. But you should. This is a good point. You should wash your hands. That they shouldn't have milk anymore on your hands, but not washing necessarily for bread in the way with the cup with the.
She
like
don't
that.
say on the Tel Shidaim
No.
That's the one.
Right. No, you don't wash it till
It's basically it's a continuation with your suda, with the exception that you're making a hefsek to clean your tablecloths,
right.
your mouth, and your hands.
Exactly.
And new lechem mishnah.
Except if you hold like the Zohar.
Right.
Which is what?
That in one meal, you shouldn't eat both milk and meat, even if the milk precedes the meat.
Yeah. Have you heard people who are careful about this? So Mishnah Berurah doesn't require that.
I'll follow Mishnah Berurah.
I tell you, we do, like you were saying, you did in your family, you have just milk.
And according to the Mishnah Berurah's reason from Gadol Echad, that's all they had on Shavuot was milchik, so that would be a reason. But the third reason we brought from the Beis Halevi is specifically to show that we're fulfilling mitzvahs with the physical entities, and that's why we have to have a Yom Tov meal only specifically on Shavuot, to show that we have a Chati Lachem, to show that we're fulfilling mitzvahs with our guf, with our body, not like the Malachim who weren't given the Torah because they only have the spiritual entity. And so we're showing by bringing in this complication of having milk and meat, and now what do we do when we have to have these halachas to fulfill? First, to wash out our mouth and make the separation, that we're showing that we're being careful about how to do it. That was the Beis Halevi's explanation.
That's a beautiful explanation.
It's something to think about, to appreciate on Shavuot, that this is not just a celebration of the soul, of the elevation of the soul, of bringing us closer to Hashem, but really this is the best thing for our entire being, for our guf also. That this is the way that our guf, is on one level of the Tchias HaMesim, of the guf, of the way that our body is going to be elevated is through the performance of mitzvahs. But even on another level, on that level, what we're saying is that the guf, without the Torah, so what our body could do is very limited in what it could do that's of eternal value. But now, through the Torah, the body is able to perform so many mitzvahs, and the body has an ability to do things that have eternal value, and that's something that elevates the body. But also, we do know, on some level, that the true joy, the best joy that we have is a life of fulfillment and accomplishment, and realizing that we're living a life of truth, and that the body also, the body also derives pleasure from. And this is really not just a life of aesthetics, of superficiality, or of separation, and just taking the ruchnius, but we want to elevate the guf, and that ultimately will bring us the most joy in life, in this life itself, that we'll have as well. We have the connection to Hashem. So that's Rashi saying that the reason why we have to have such a celebration is because we want to show that the body is also happy with receiving the Torah. There's an interesting remez to the word chalav that's brought. Let me see if I can find it here. That the chalav is spelled ches lamed beis, and what do you say? Gematria 40. Yeah, that's one of the reasons. You're familiar with this reason. The Torah was given to Moshe Rabbeinu in 40 days. So chalav is Gematria 40. This reason is brought. Okay, let me see. This is brought in the Sefer called Naziras Shimshon. Okay, Chalav is gematria mem. Ram is the Torah is given 40 days, and we show that it's more important than anything else that was created, because everything else that was created in 6 days. But the Torah took 40 days, so to speak, to bring down to this world, to bring into being 40 days. And the 40 days, how do we show, what does milk have to do with 40? Because the gematria of Chalav, Ches is 8, and Lamed is 30, and Beis is 2. It comes out to be 30 plus 8 plus 2 is 40. And there's another remez, the Oisiyos Chalav. See if I can find this. Okay. The Sefer Mate Moshe says that what carbon do we bring on Shavuot? The carbon that we bring is Shtei Alechem. It's called Mincha Chadasha LaHashem. So the way describing the carbon Mincha is Chadasha LaHashem B'Shavuot Seichem. Okay? Ches Lamed Hey. Chadasha LaHashem B'Shavuot Seichem. So the Osios are Ches Lamed Beis is Chalav. Okay? Rashi Teva is Chalav. The first letters of these words are Chadasha Ches LaHashem is Lamed, and B'Shavuot Seichem. The first letter is Beis. Is Rashi Teva. It says Rashi Teva means the first letter of each word is Chalav. It spells out Chalav.
It's interesting how we have this minhag, and it looks like we're looking for a justification for it. And you look hard enough, you find the gematria here, Rashi Teva's there.
Yeah, and the significance, it's sort of like the simanim that you have on Rosh Hashanah. The significance, in some degree, is in that which you appreciate in them. What you see in the significance, like it's a siman that, say a harachaman, and you want that this should be a sign for a good new year for such and such, because it's meramis, because it's a remes to something, and the significance somewhat has to do with what you appreciate in it. And but okay, this, like I said, this Sefer brings 12 reasons, and as we're going to mention from the reasons of eating chalav today. But there's one more reason I want to mention, and this is a beautiful reason. Mr. Brura actually brings this reason that says, that the reason is because the pasuk says, "Dvash v'chalav tachas l'shaynich." Okay. Don't remember. I think maybe it's a pasuk in Shir Shirim, but the pasuk says that dvash v'chalav tachas l'shaynich. Dvash means honey, and chalav is milk, and tachas l'shaynich is under your tongue. So the idea is that the Torah is given to us like under our tongue, that we study Torah with our tongue. So the idea is that the Torah is supposed to be so sweet and so rich to us, like dvash v'chalav, dvash being sweetness, and chalav being something that's rich. It's rich. Milk is something that's very, very rich in its flavor, and that is the Torah. We're supposed to remember that pasuk on Shavuot, and therefore we want to have the milk. We know there's a minhag by a child that by his upsharon, when he turns 3, they take him to in some places they have this minhag to take him to the cheder to teach him aleph beis, and they teach him aleph beis. They put the milk on the letters of the aleph beis, the honey, and he licks the honey. So that's also this idea of the dvash to be tachas l'shaynich. Right, it should be sweet. The Torah should be sweet to us. And we spend hours on Shavuot, so especially those who stay up learning Torah on Shavuot. But we have to remember that Shavuot is not just about learning Torah, but the Shavuot is about showing our joy in the receiving of the Torah. And the idea, one of the main ideas of learning the Torah so many hours, is to show how precious it is to us. And when it's precious to us, we learn it. I remember hearing from one of my Rabbeim, I don't remember if he said that he did this himself or he saw somebody else did this, that if he saw a sefer that had fallen have fallen, so there's a minhag to pick it up and kiss the sefer. So he said that he felt that not just to pick it up, or before you put it away, you kiss the sefer and you put it away. And he said that a way to show love for the sefer is not just to kiss it, but to pick it up and to learn something from it. And then you show that this is precious, there's something here that's special, to learn from it. So that's why we're learning on Shavuot. There's so much of Shavuot is to show our great, intense celebration of that we rejoice in the receiving of the Torah, and that's what we want to show. Okay, so so this is what we shared. Today's share was about. Ended up that the entire time spent about a chalav, and that was the significance of the milchiks on Shavuos, and it's a very special thing that there's a sefer called, a beautiful sefer. The author was nifter this year. I forgot his name, but it's a beautiful sefer called Minhag Yisrael Torah. Some people are familiar with the sefer called Tamya Minhagim. It's an older sefer. There's a more recent sefer called Minhag Yisrael Torah in 3 different volumes, and he goes into the significance of all of the minhagim in Klal Yisrael.
Wow, that's
it's
cool.
a beautiful sefer, and any minhagim you could look in that sefer and find beautiful explanations for it. Yeah, the sefer Tam Minhagim is very beautiful also, and this is a little bit, I guess, brings more explanations besides the ones that are brought there. And
I'm guessing it's only in Hebrew. It probably doesn't have an English translation.
I'm not aware that there's an English translation to it, but there is the concept is that when there's a minhag in Klal Yisrael, when there's a custom in Klal Yisrael, it's not something to be taken lightly. It's not just something. It's a ritual that we keep doing because it has a Jewish nostalgia to it, and therefore we want to just keep on going with the ritual that we want to identify with our past. It's a nice thing to identify with our past, but there's reasons to it. There's a reason why it's begun and why it's something that was taken on and perpetuated. And it's something to understand and not to just push away. And if there's a minhag to keep a certain laws, that becomes if it's a real minhag and it's your minhag, that becomes binding, and we have to keep it. This is something that in some places they have this minhag, so it's not as strong of a minhag that's a minhag in all of Klal Yisrael. But there are other minhagim that we have that are much stronger, like keeping Yom Tov Sheni, that became halachically binding because it was a minhag in Klal Yisrael. Okay, Yashar Kash.
Thank you.